Today we have the session this afternoon of this workshop organized by the EELISA program. We have the session on the social sciences of sciences. Hello to all of you. And it's my great pleasure to have the possibility to introduce Nunzio Abbate. So, it's my pleasure to have the possibility to introduce Nunzio Abbate. Nunzio Abbate is has an important management role in a ST microelectronics company that is a leading Italo-French company in the field of microelectronics. Among the several applications, ST microelectronics produced sensors that are into all our devices in a ubiquitous manner, and they are enabling technologies for Internet of Things. But not only that, that is of course an important part of the ST microelectronics business. But ST microelectronics is producing microelectronic devices in several fields, including automotive, including microcontrollers, and so on. So it basically is an enabler of various technologies, and we are very proud that this is a European company. So we have the manufacturing basis in Europe, I mean a design basis that is European, and to have these companies grounded in Europe is very important for our economic growth and to translate our competencies and scientific research into societal impact. Nunzio Abbate is also Vice President of the Industry 4.0 Competence Center at ISE 4.0. That, by the way, as you know, it's one of the associated partners of the EELISA projects. This is a competence center that has 127 partners and represents more than 45 billion of Italian gross domestic product in terms of companies associated to this competence center. ST Microelectronics is one of the most important companies associated to the competence center. So it's my pleasure to give the field to Nunzio. Thank you, Nunzio, for being with us, and we look forward to listening to your presentation. The time is about 20 minutes.
Okay. First of all, good afternoon to everybody, and I hope that you listen and see me correctly, because of course on this kind of speech it's always needed to have a double check between the audience. It's really a pleasure for me to be part of this workshop, and also thanks a lot also to Calogero, the organization committee, to have the possibility to, let me say, continue a path regarding the sensors activities that in ST is part of our DNA, of our value proposition worldwide. Of course, what we show today is the third generation of the ecosystem of the sensors evolution. And I will switch now with the presentation mode with my slides, and I hope that I will enjoy, you will enjoy this third generation that are coming on with a different concept. I suppose you see my slide. Now I'm projecting that represent what we call from the offline to the on-life point of view. As said by Calogero, I'm Nunzio Abbate. I'm responsible of the system lab inside ST Microelectronics. I'm the senior director of the organization. That is an organization inside the innovation office of the company, working in terms of system know-how between all the business unit in the company in ST Microelectronics and with key customers. I will do my best to maintain the right scheduling, the right timing on the presentation, and I will start immediately with the first slide, talking with you about what is the MEMS journey. As you know, I'm sure you are aware, ST Microelectronics was one of the pioneers of the MEMS, of the sensors ecosystem. So pioneer means that we work since beginning with the first application in the what we call now offline era, the era of the paradigm of the human-machine interaction interface is changing between, in example, Nintendo Wii, or the first enablers of the consumers of the mobile phone. At that time, MEMS was a technology and was immediately the swap and the mapping between technology, concept, and product. Now, in 2010, started a different approach. The sensors proliferated also in this decade the connection to the cloud, the connection to the internet, enabling new performance improvement and enabling what we call the technology fusion. Today, we wanted to share with you what is our All Life era. All Life is a concept from a book from Luciano Flori, the All Life Manifesto, where we try to work in a fusion of the technology and the life. So not only the standard sensors, but also standalone devices able to sense, process, and take also actions. If we have imagined what is the roadmap of the last 20 years of sensors, and mainly the MEMS sensors, where MEMS is a huge ecosystem, in the different path, we have single sensors, multiple sensors. When the online smart sensors, now we talk about intelligent sensors, but also actuators, 3D actuators, optical actuators. Don't forget, MEMS are not only sensors, but also actuators, where actuators imagining micro mirroring or micro structure able to make some actions. And this is extremely important in the enhancement of the user experience. With a lot of technology enablers, as you can see, as the radar, the evolving to the LiDAR, but in the meantime, we're increasing the bandwidth of thanks to the 5G. But we have also the AI introduction with the in online periods with the cloud and the offline processor. Next step was the Edge AI introduction, and now we have a proliferation with different technologies. If we go a little bit more in detail, again, it was a paradigm change. Offline era, 2000-2010, MEMS technology, accelerometer, passives, PC, wearable, smartphone. Offline era, MEMS was established and ST made the bigger jump, the bigger true penetration inside the usage of this technology inside everyday life. In the cars, in printers, gaming, smartphone. Everyone knows. This seems archaeological era. You can imagine something that was hundreds of years ago and was only 15 years ago, no more than this. And in this way, just an example, we started to interact with our phone that becoming more and more a piece of our extended, augmented capability. With the 5 sense, and with our brain, with our hands, we enabled the sensors, the MEMS enabled a new way to interacting with the mobile phone, becoming something extremely interesting in terms of human-machine interaction. And at the time, we have accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, microphone. The list of sensors in 2000 era was extremely limited. 2010, 2020, we started with the usage of increase. As we know, our company leading the miniaturization, leading not only the R&D and the technology enabling of the sensors, but also we lead the manufacturing, we lead evolution, we lead the performance improvement, technology fusion, several technologies embedded together, embedding and coupling sensors with MCU, with connectivity, and starting to enable the cloud service. In the meantime, the sensors was adopted everywhere, not only in the consumer, but also with different spec and mapping also on industrial, medical, automotive, thanks to this increase in the performance. And the sensors start to, the smartphone started to super miniaturize and super integrate different functions and different features. What's happening in these 10 years of the, let me say, MEMS positioning and ST enablement? It was unbelievable, but in 10 years, 2009, 2019, we reduced the power of our sensors of 91%. Increased the performance like accelerometer noise, temperature stability, noise reduction in gyroscope of a factor higher than 70%. Reduces the size of 70%, full scale range doubled, and starting to embed inside the sensors. The 2009 was pure transducer between the physical environment and the electric and electronic ecosystem, embedding first finite state machine, learning core, extremely simple application. But what is really unbelievable that enabled a huge quantity of new technology, of new application, was the cost. The cost reduction of three-fourths of the original cost. At that time, starting to talk on technology fusion, no? The famous three pillars: signal available, edging thanks to DSP capabilities, and starting to imagine to have inside a processing capability and quote machine learning and AGI capability. An example for condition monitoring, predictive maintenance, extremely important, and reducing the number of data. In the meantime, we have starting to understand what is transmitting data. Data is a word extremely sensitive because its cost, the bandwidth, the cloud, nothing is free of charge. But we increased the level of our capabilities, also embedding inside processing and embedding inside connectivity capabilities. At that time, we have the smartphone in the online era. Using the smartphone is something extremely simple, but of course you can imagine the mapping in all the other applications. I will have a couple of examples at the end of my presentation. But if you take a look, we have the boom of a lot of other sensors, accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, microphone. But in the online era, the accelerometer, the gyroscope, and magnetometer become a 6-axis IMU, activity recognition, the trackers. The gyroscope, using, in example, the optical image stabilization to have a better stabilization of our camera thanks to the gyroscope. Or barometer, altimeter for the pressure, humidity and temperature for environment monitoring, time of flight sensor, phase ED, or camera enhancement. This is becoming the fusion of the different sensors integrating with the small portion of brain inside, of intelligence and communication. With the wearable, we have the booming of this nice sensor fusion. So we have pervasiveness of fitness band, smartwatch, wireless speaker, hearable, and TWS. TWS, what does it mean? The true wireless stereo content and functions that today every one of us use in our earphones are today enabled thanks to enhanced sensor fusion and enhanced performances. There is a proximity sensor that inform our headphone if it's close the hair or not, an MU accelerometer for the positioning and the movement, a voice accelerometer thanks to the bone conduction, just an example, and MEMS microphone. So at the end, this is an extremely nice example of a huge technology enabler of the technology of MEMS with the processing, the connectivity, for enable a fantastic experience of our hearing capability during listening music. And now we are arriving to the Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 is extremely important today, also in the workshop, is one of the mainstream, as one of the mainstream of the artists competence center, and the discussion are today ongoing. A revolution in the extremely ancient and very conservative place like the factory, thanks to the boost of sensors and processing, connectivity. We can start to imagine inside the factory presence and environmental sensing for safety and for safe and for the health of the equipment and the people. The positional navigation, thanks to the new enabler like the ultra-wideband connectivity, joined and reinforced by the indoor navigation, inertial indoor navigation. But predictive maintenance, every equipment with some electric machine, in example, equipped with nice enabling sensors. Tracking and monitoring is another important aspect for human and asset. Don't forget the capability of data collection, local processing, and offline or online to making decision and action. And don't forget the capability to enhance also the human-machine interaction thanks to the usage of sensors like, let me say, a second skin in our, or barrier in our industrial ecosystem. Now there is another challenge in this all-life ecosystem, the automotive. Up to date, automotive was only discussing on more or less the headers, no, for navigation, presence positioning. The connectivity is enabled by V2E, pneumatic box. But don't forget the electrification revolution, road noise cancelling, battery monitoring, condition monitoring, door modules, and let me anticipate, predictive maintenance in the remaining lifetime of electric machine, thanks to the enabling of vibration, detecting gearing and other kind of nice things that will become the new oil check in your car in the future, when you will have a check of the bearings of your electric machine, or a check of the current of the heady current inside your electric motors. This is a wave of new introduction of. And on this, a wave of automotive application, MEMS enabled. Don't forget that will be up to today already available, it's not the future. ESP, airbag, navigation, tire, TFOP, car alarm. On this, we helping the people and all the technical community to touch in a nice box the capability of our processing and sensing. Is ST-Win, is a brand of ST, able to work with Azure or AWS. I let you to game, is a, let me say, nice gadget, but is a good way to start to talk on our capability. But if you imagine now what is the next step, the all-life era. Until today, we talk only on sensor, standalone, sensor fusion, and now we're starting to talk what is the next step. All-life era, the fusion of technology and life. Because now, if you imagine these sensors and actuators, they will start to imagine the embedding of intelligent devices able to sense, process, and take locally action. This way, you will have that your personal electronics will start to be something that learn your preference, your attitude, your habits. But industrial equipment starting to be customized thanks to a wave of new sensing nodes able to talk each other, but also to decide at local level and enhance productivity, reliability, safety, control. Just imagine a cobots, 2, 3, 4 cobots working together. The capability of the safety to avoiding collisions, or in the future, the trajectory control, not through encoders, not through resolver, but using exactly the real positioning in the space of the robots to close the loop and actuate the electric machine, making the robot able to work. And don't forget, in the car, combustion engine will be replaced with the fuel electric cars and self-driving cars, with a huge quantity of processing at local level and extremely fast response, and the sensors will enable this. So at the end, we are working where systems, where sensors live as completely different. First decade, offline era, fragmented, every sensors in a place, and making one single functions interconnected with the main CPU. Online era, connected. Again, we will have a new interwired node data exchange, local processing until a certain level. Third step, trained AGI at local decision. Maximum privacy is not a camera, is not a detection of your life. It's a pure sensors with the capability to say yes or no, to make an action or not without transfer of information, except what is needed locally for the making the decision that was programmed by human designer and project. And where the systems, where sensors live, is increasing also the efficiency, because if you have the possibility to work with a new environment with a lot of sensors that helping us, our equipment, our decision to make a better projection for the future, at the end, everything will be more sustainable in terms of efficiency. If we have an electric machine that working in a bad bearing situation, so using a very bad efficiency in terms of the electric consumption for a bearing problem, our sensor vibrometer will be able to detect that there is a problem in the electric machine and to alert the maintenance, or swap to a different mapping of the inverters, able to increase the efficiency and overcome the aging of the electric machine. Don't forget that today in Italy, just an example, 65% of the electric energy consumption are in electric motor, but in industrial, residential, and not the electric cars, not yet. So if we are able to, thanks to the better control using a pervasiveness of vibrometer to reduce to increase the efficiency of 1 or 2%, we can save a lot of energy, a lot of real impact in the global green footprint. But now, don't forget, we have a vision on that. The vision is to enable sensors with embedding machine learning. We are creating several different kinds of sensors. We have the possibility to help the developers, so the technical community, to work on broad portfolio sensors, reduced power consumption, we increase accuracy, and leverage, thanks to real edge computing, but leverage the machine learning technique from the AI world in embedding solution. Just an example, meaningful data. We have from and this can helping from cloud, but not only, because to arrive to the cloud, to execute code in the cloud, to execute an FFT in the cloud for every node in a factory, in a fab, is extremely expensive, extremely bandwidth. It's different if you have sensors in the real asset, thanks to local AGI able to understand which kind of meaningful data are available, thanks to the network and connectivity arrive to the gateway, and the cloud AI define only, in example, the virtual model for the extremely high-level discussion, but acting at the low level. So at the end, we want to work on from real data to meaningful information to be transferred to the cloud. In the meantime, capture data, streaming, transformation, modeling, and arrive to the data-driven decision. To move in the top level, only the portion of the data extremely important. And again, this is something that we enable not only in terms of sensors, but also in terms of tools. ST tools able to help you in this fast development and fast prototyping phase, with the tools like Algo Builder or Unico, with tools like AGI, the Nano AGI, the STM32 Cube AI, enabling thanks to the STM32, a lot of features of security. Don't forget, huge quantity, billions of IoT nodes means billions of potential hacking target for hackers, for all the people that want to jump in your privacy data or your industrial data and execute something that is not exactly in line with the target you have in mind. And at the end, we can have also vice versa. from digital model on the right side of the slide, to go back and readapt, recalibrate, change the performances or of the characteristic of your sensors. Again, thanks to the local intelligence. In this case, I will go fast and conclude. We enable also some very nice applications enabled by augmented reality, virtual reality, and LiDAR. This is real key life or life enablers. With an example, the AR/VR with the glasses or the autonomous driving in the cars. Virtual reality, augmented reality, from one side, again, evolution of the consumer wave in this online era, and ADAS and autonomous driving enabling the mobility of today. Just a quickly snapshot of what is the ST projection on this AR/VR. Smart glasses, augment your world. Again, if you can see what we discovered in previous 10 years are now mapped inside extremely precise new enabling application of the 21st century killer technology, maybe of the human-machine interactions. CXMU, the MEMS mirrors, actuators, audio accelerometers, bones conduction, microphone MEMS, body and eye monitoring sensors, MEMS speaker, environmental sensor, all together enabling a list of new technology that are extremely important. And in this offline era or life era, the smart glasses becoming reality with the new kind of sensors like the time of flight for the Face ID or for the camera enhancement thanks to telemetry. But again, this is a new wave of interesting enablers that enable new technology. On the automotive, this is the last information. The advanced driver assistance system working in the direction of a full autonomous mobility. Today, this is enabled thanks to the new support of the ST technology. You know already our main enabler on the camera solutions, but don't forget that we are working also on hardware and software layer from starting from the needs and looking for at the end of the solution. This is my last chart with takeaways. Sensor pervasion will keep the pace. Multiple sensors, interconnected, edge processing. Now we are entering on this life era, product sense, process take action, and this has enabled this in second wave in a sustainable manner. And now developing sensor actuators that make the needs of our customer, partner, R&D people, and developers. And this is thanks to the fact that are pioneer on the sensors ecosystem and now looking for the future daily by daily with you. This is my last slide. I don't know if you have some question. If any question, I'm here. And thanks a lot for your time today and for attention to our value proposition of this online era.
Thank you, Nunzio. It is impressive the progress of technologies that we are witnessing those days, particularly the slide of showing the advancements in 10 years, in terms of metrological performance, power, and so on. It's impressive. Clearly, there is a huge quantity of societal issues that are raised. And in fact, the next presentation that will be given by Professor Giovanni Comandè will be very important, very pertinent, and connected to what you showed, because actually we are witnessing a continuous motion of data from local data to remote data, and then back to local and then remote and so on. So historically, we are seeing the different architectures that are basically technology-driven, these changes, because there are changes in architecture, the revolution of cloud, connectivity, faster networks, and so on. In this respect, there will be our colleagues in telecommunication engineering, Prabhat Parenghi, Piero Cattoldi, that later on may discuss some enabling technologies. But also, there are implications connected to the management. this is the reason why we now have Giovanni Comandè. Before going to Professor Comandè, let me, of course, Nunzio, you're welcome to stay with us as much as you can, also to discuss, because as you know, today the idea is to get those inputs to contribute to defining which are the competencies and the skill set of the professional or researcher of the future. And this is the reason why we have approximately 30 professors here meeting. This is a closed, it's public because the link was disseminated in public, but basically it's by invitation. We have a roundtable involving several professors that will discuss about how this will shape the educational programs of the future in the framework of the EELISA program. Is there any question for Nunzio Abbate?
I would have a number of them, to be honest, but I don't know if we do have time. One,
maybe you can give answers and questions because so since it's your time now, so it's up to you to decide how to manage. Yeah.
Also picture. Okay, I think I need to request control to get rid of that picture. But,
it is the one on the official website of the school. So yeah. I will change.
I should get rid of the website. All right. First of all, let me thank Calogero for this kind invitation, all of you, and apologize for not being able to follow all the time the discussion. So I hope to catch up with the slides and anything else. I mean, the very simple question that I was going to ask to Nunzio Abbate, it's basically, first of all, thank you for your presentation, which is on the one hand, really impressive. On the other hand, it's reassuring for me that at least the title is correct in my presentation. Am I sharing already? No. Let me share first, then. Okay. All right. Can you see it? Because now I don't see you. So I don't know.
We see.
Good. Excellent. So at least the title of my presentation it's the correct. So the remote sensing society. So what you presented clearly is immediately linked to what I had in mind to say. And what I had in mind to say is strictly related to the task that Calogero assigned to me. That is, let's talk about what are the training needs for the modern society and for basically industry, companies, and what we can do at the university side. And so my question to you, Nunzio, would have been, are you sure that what you presented would be considered from a legal and an ethical point of view maximum privacy? That is really not having and processing personal data, because in this flux of data that Calogero was mentioning before, actually there are it's a continuing exchange which is basically increasing and multiplying continuously what technically would be a re-identification process. Now, just anticipating something, since I mean the goal was to basically discuss what we can do and teach. So let's start the sharing, and I will go very fast. So some of the things that for industry and for trainees we can offer here at Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna and in my research lab in particular. So these are just some of the few projects in which we are either leading or involved. But the question is that in all this exchange of data, and I've chosen these slides to start with by the special issues devoted to smart sensors and devices in artificial intelligence. Regardless of the content, the highlighted in red, sensors are eyes and ears of an intelligent system, which is true. I think that's what you described in a very broad sense. This is somehow remote. And of course, I mean, our senses are the first collective vehicles for getting information and data. And then we have the computational ability. And everything sensors are doing is expanding our capability to gather information and and that's the third element that I announced here, is that data and sensor data without the computational ability, therefore the development and deployment of artificial intelligence basically are useless. Now, if we start looking from the legal and ethical perspective, the issue might become very puzzling. If we take the example of Horizon Europe, for instance, all the ethical and legal issues have been somehow subverted, and straightforward, you have an assessment for the artificial intelligence, whether or not there are serious and complex issues for artificial intelligence. This is significant because we cannot anymore talk of big data without AI and without sensors. All kinds of sensors which are deployed. And as Nunzio, please forgive me for leveraging on your presentation, but it was too challenging for that. And we start by bringing the two elements together to leverage even more sensors that we continue still largely to perceive as basically without any legal and or ethical concern. When you mentioned the brakes that signals whether or not they need to be repaired and so on and so forth, but all those information are able to, and that's introducing basically the key feature, the key issues, they're all leading, if we take the stance, for instance, of personal data protection, to re-identify. In the numerous projects we've been looking at, several of them were clearly not aiming, but using results of sensors that we don't think normally. For instance, just the sensors related to domotics, or even more remotely, the sensors analyzing the power consumptions of our meters at home, which related to other sources of data and related to AIs, of course, were very easily able to predict not only whether or not you were at home, not only how many people were at home, but also consumption ability, whether or not you would take the shower, how many times, how long you would take a shower, which is nothing really important, but give you a clear picture of what we can perceive from sensors if we combine with those data with other data and with the ability to develop models on them. So already with this, basically, I am trying to draw a picture in which this remote sensing society, which is basically enabled by all the kinds of sensors that we have been talking today and many more beyond. I think Nunzio's presentation is an excellent synthesis of that, really are able to aid to the collapse among different categories, including the most simple category of personal and non-personal data. Now, I prepared some of slides that will be really jumping through it, because what I am more interested to display is a different issue. That sensors enable a very large, highly precise and effective creation of AI-based models. That is, patterns to be applied and to be applied on a very small number of data points. Now, if we start taking as an example, again, it's only an example, how many sensors we are connected with, right, and used. Think about all the wearables for which my learned colleagues here at the Scuola are leaders, to many other, in which they are all as well leaders in developing them. And all these sensors basically completely changed our interplay with the environment, and basically are inscribed, are within a legal framework which in many ways it's basically forcing us to stay connected, that is, to stay continuously remotely sensed. The notion of remote sensing, someone is typing, may I ask to close the, thank you, the microphone. Basically, since we are basically forced to stay connected and enable a large number of sensors which collects a number of data on us, we are enabling further the development of models. Now, what I'm trying to stress here is, and if we give for acquired the development of data-driven models that are applied in everyday life. I mean, the more simple example is your search on every browser that starts with models which are applied to us in real-time bidding, for instance, just for the banners. That's the most simple example. Now, if we start thinking about it and start to think about the connections that are possible by different identifiers. So the sensors in the car, which are, if pulled together, improving the weather forecast, because the sensor in my car that starts the screen cleaners because of some drops that are getting, once enabled to send a signal to a central station that is enabled to adapt the forecast and the model, are strictly related to other identifiers of that sensor that leads to me. So at the same time, they can not necessarily give, are giving my position, my use of the car, my trajectory in terms of mobility, and so on, so forth. So all this, it's increasing the possibility of continuous remote sensing. For those of you, I think very few or probably no one not acquainted with the notion of remote sensing, think when you were kids playing with small insects that didn't perceive that you were changing their trajectory. You were observing little spiders and rats, and with whooshing on them, you were driving them. They didn't perceive you. You were remote sensing. And that's basically our life today. We are continuously remote sensed. At least we enable this unnoticed acquisition, elaboration information on ourselves, by our things, by our Internet of Things, on all the sensors that have been described so far. Now, all this, again, has moved from a sensing society to basically a continuous classifying society. We are continuously classified. That is, models are applied on us. When I say models, I think it's understandable to everybody dealing with some data science, at least, what models are, so I don't go in details there. But certainly, the use of sensors, continuous generation of data, as enabled in this classifying society. Now, we are all classified right now as EELISA participants to this workshop. And this is one of the traits that unify us as a class and makes us, for instance, a potential target for advertisement, for any other thing you can think of. What has changed? I'm not really going very fast because I don't want to steal too much time. If you think for a moment, before the sensor era, before the big data era, models, classifications was only intended for animals and things. Now, Google, faithful to its nature, clarifies that classification means to arrange a group of people or things, eventually, in classes or categories according to shared qualities or characteristics, which, by the way, are, for instance, the personal data that are used to trigger events, to trigger advice, to trigger participation, to trigger access to services. Now, all the situation is moved up from a stable to transient pigeonholing, to transient classification, which is granularly multiplied by sensors. The example of the shields that starts, it's adding an element which may switch the model applied in that moment in time to me. Because I might be included, let's say, the first drops of a severe thunderstorm creating hazards, therefore increasing my insurance premiums in terms of risk, because I'm running through different areas like that. Okay, now, what I'm trying to say here is that the remote sensing society, since many of the data are technically speaking, at first at least, for instance, not personal data, although they trigger the application of the developed models on individuals, have completely, at least started to collapse the distinction between personal and non-personal data, which already unfolds a number of issues that needs to be taken into account by those that need to be trained in the development of sensors, of the corresponding AIs, and of the corresponding use of the data they generate and or use. Because the legal framework changed altogether. And question, that was my original question from Nunzio. Are we sure that although we have in that specific instance a high level of privacy, because we are not even entering the system, we are computing at edge. That was the last example, I think, that you referred to. Are we sure that that collected with a number of other instances, elements, features, doesn't lead to re-identification? I mean, it sounds, and to a large extent, it's a rhetoric question. The answer is not. Clearly, we are not sure. But it was even more relevant are two things. First, that the remote sensing is increasing also another feature that is widely already used in terms of massification. That is, it's enabling the exploitation of the cognitive part of data sciences, which is the use of behavioral. Can you hear?
Yes, yes.
What's happening?
That Paolo Dario started already to laugh, and that's enough for me. You are seeing
No,
this video, you are laughing.
Just laughing for the interference.
This interference, this is not an interference. I was displaying the video.
Okay, very good.
Okay, and that my goal was to make you laugh. And trust me, in another 10 seconds, everybody here would have been laughing. Not because of interference, but just because I was just creating some, I was triggering some cognitive biases in you guys that made you laugh. This is just to explain, by combining sensors and everything, we are even able to exploit, literally exploit, a humongous amount of our cognitive biases. And to move a step forward, I promise in 3 minutes I finish, Calogero, okay? So to move just faster on that, that's basically what is happening, and it's increasingly happening and being much more effective and in a stealth modality, which we do not even perceive, like the laughing, okay, today, by the use of sensors, okay? We are getting nudged continuously in that direction. And this goes without saying it, but all this is raising a humongous amount of legal and ethical issues in terms of regulatory terms, in terms of implications, in terms of consumer protection, consumer compliance, in terms of ability to reach merchantability of the products we are using or the products which are embedding the sensors on many accounts. So what I'm trying to display is, without telling you, it's the number, the tremendous long list of legal and ethical issues that all this is raising, that requires actually a training for the developers and the deployers of, so from the design to deployment of the three elements I brought together: sensors, AI, and data. Okay. Now, I will go very fast on that. We don't have time. We skipped the stalking economy, because what I wanted to show you to close, it's a different thing. Okay. Just 2 seconds. Since there is already a huge industry of cross-device matching, I guess at least those of you involved in the industry are aware of the existing and exploding industry that is cross-matching data. And my starting point, the collapse between personal and non-personal data, in order to apply a model that is triggering an event that applies a model on an individual, we don't need anymore to have the data of that individual. I mean, the edge computing, the fingerprints, which are not cookies, the internet fingerprints, are outside my computer, outside my control domain area. But it doesn't require much to apply a model. So, for instance, due to the coexistence of some sensors, the coexistence of some sensors, which, for instance, are sharing a wireless connection. Okay, it's a very stupid example. For the model, and that moment, the combination of these devices make me, oh, sorry, I went too fast, apply to me the following fitting model. So the model to apply to me for any purpose you can imagine, okay? Could be advertising, could be any other things. So between 8:30 and 5:30, I am a female professional aged 42, which this should make you laugh much more than the video before, right? Because I'm not 42, I'm not female, right? At least I claim being neither of them, right? But when the moving of time, changing of sensors, just changing of the combination, which of course, the sensor are just the triggering things in my simple, very simple example, and just an intelligent refrigerator pops up. And at that moment, I am a child, male, age 8. I feel much close to this model, okay? Time goes along, don't worry, I'm closing, right? And well, you know, between 7 and 10 and 8 p.m., this different combination makes me a teenager, female, right? All this is triggered without knowing who I am actually. Now, I will just go directly to the conclusion. At a certain moment in time in my day, I am my wife. Okay. Now, just to conclude, what doesn't mean that a model is applied to me means that either the model gets it wrong, or the model is getting too much right. That is, it's able, even without formally using and employing any personal data, to target me according to a model that combines and analyzes the different uses of the different devices, regardless of their belonging to some person. Which is worst, if you start thinking, if I am in a certain moment of time, and maybe on every other weekend, right, I am a teenager, or I am a young kid, okay? This enables another model, a prediction model, to be applied on me. For instance, just guessing, if I see a teenager and a younger boy on every other week. And my laptop, it's behaving either like a teenager or like a young boy. And you can easily imply that two people behaving like that are using at least one of those devices, which are linked by the sensors, on every other week. I leave to you what can be the inferences on that, because they are pretty simple. And we cannot behave like that. At least we cannot stay in the ignorance of what are all the legal and ethical implications and constraints from design to deployment of our sensors. I will not continue with that and just reach my closing slides. On last century, this was the word. It's not that word anymore. I didn't have the time to insert the new slide, which I will display eventually in another seminar that Calogero will be organizing. Thank you for your attention.
Thank
and
you.
My apologies to Nunzio.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. It was and I wish to give the floor to Nunzio that wanted to ask a question to you.
Yeah, because not for a question, but for an answer. Because of course you challenge me and my company on this, and of course it's correct that I do an answer. You're fully right. It's very complex to have this huge quantity of sensors, but everyone accepting to share our life with this kind of KGB spy in our pocket, and also with this switched off, because you know the spy is switched on, switched off, screen off, screen off. The electronics is in the hands of the human. Is always depends. It's like a gun, like a nuclear bomb. You can make with the nuclear energy, with the fusion, the atomic bomb, or you can make like our friends in ENI and in MIT, the new wave of the nuclear fusion for energy of the future, real green. But regarding our semiconductor point of view, my presentation is an answer for you, because it's not made by human. If you have huge quantity of information from your ecosystem, from your sensors, up to the network, up to the cloud, with someone else that will analyze if you are doing shower, or you are doing heating, or you are watching a video, is one thing. If you have a stupid intelligent sensors able to say, this is my shower, it's hot, it's cold, and locally say, it's hot, reduce the temperature, it's hot, increase the temperature. Nobody human will have this information, because locally the sensor or the actuators made a local intelligent approach with a very stupid piece of silicon. The problem is not now the human, is maybe the machine-machine interaction, but it's another story. It's Terminator story, is a robot, is another picture that we'll see maybe in the future. But the sensors with local intelligence will become very simple way also to protect privacy, because the bandwidth around of piece of IPs for safety, for protect the data transfer, avoiding spoofing, avoiding ID hacking, it's something that is first extremely strong, like all our credit card, just an example. If it's enough, it's okay. The second is local. There's no change of information outside, and this is my answer to your challenge and provocation. But of course, what you are saying is extremely right, and I'm more scared of the other things of ecosystem than a piece of silicon. I hope that I answered your question. You are mute.
Yes, you answered very much, and that was the answer I was looking for. So I was not. I mean, attacking or questioning your technology, of course. I was just trying to depict a larger picture, leveraging on your beautiful presentation. But the reason I raised the hand was because actually your answer empowers me to add to one minute of other issues, to illustrate other issues which needs to be taken into account. Because as long as we use Nuncio's technology, we are safe. Now the question is that Nuncio's technology gets in contact with my fridge, my refrigerator, or my car, or my other issue, which is a legacy technology. Now, as long as it stays local, for instance, as you are promising, and I fully trust you that your promise is delivered, okay? That once I, as a user, start to use in connection with other, that was the networking. In 20 minutes, we cannot really go in depth in anything, but then what about the interplay between cutting-edge, marvelous technology like the one you described, and when we bring them, for instance, home with legacy technology? I mean, if you think about the interconnected, the big issue for the connected things is there is a humongous amount of legacy technology which is and will stay for a number of years showing vulnerabilities. So all the other layers of, which is another elements which is definitely pretty much needed in the project in EELISA, it's legal and practical rules on and relationship with the standardization, all the layers and interconnection with the cybersecurity, not just in terms of the traditional, which is absolutely relevant and important, international cybersecurity, but just the links with existing, bluntly speaking, I mentioned consumer protection technologies, consumer protection as an example, is all the liability related issues and all the governing surrounding data, all the data governance, which is needed, just to give you an example. So I fully agree with you, and thanks for introducing the subject, the topic of the legacy technologies, which comes into contact with the cutting edge.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you both, Nunzio and Giovanni, for your presentation and also the stimulating debate. It's clear that there is a room for debate. For those that I know that Nunzio will leave, but I mean, we are continuously interacting in the framework of the Competence Center Artists 4.0. So there will be plenty of opportunity to further debate, and there will be for sure, at least in this is my intention, to organize a follow-up initiatives after this workshop. I now have the pleasure to give the field to Professor Paolo Dario. Paolo Dario is Emeritus Professor at the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna and Scientific Director of the Competence Center Artes 4.0. It's my privilege to have the opportunity to introduce Professor Dario, that is a well-known scientist worldwide, was past president of the Trapoli Robotics Automation Society, Egelberger Prize, had a lot of awards by scientific societies worldwide, and I would say also is my mentor, not only for me, but is a mentor of our whole academic school that Professor Dario founded at the Robotics Institute of Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna. The floor
is some industry stakeholder too, huh?
Okay, thank you. Can I get the control and share my...
Yeah, you can.
Tapping. Quite strange. It's like...
retry maybe. Okay, now try again.
It's like locked. Maybe I get out and in again.
Okay.
Okay. No, now it's okay. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much, Calogero. It's of course a great pleasure, and thank you very to all. Today, I would like to share a little bit of history of what happened to our institute while building on initial knowledge on sensors. You know, essentially, we were an active part of the growth of the field of robotics, the field of bionics, the field of biorobotics, till today with our institute, and if you will, also to this initiative that is focused on a key component of these systems. And first, I'd like to say something of what is biorobotics and bionic science. You know, is essentially a new wave of work that is based on the fact that robots are not used just for applications, but are used as a scientific tool. You know, this is something that was not clearly accepted years ago. So we're talking about robot design primarily for scientific research, like we talk about robot design primarily for solving practical problems. This is analogous of what you have suggested for sensing science and technology, or science and engineering. So robotics is now everywhere. But actually, my own history and the history of our institute started with sensors. You know, in the 80s, so 40 years ago, I personally started by designing sensors, and then gradually, beginning from the components, we aimed and we dared, in fact, to develop more sophisticated components and systems, and essentially exploding in what I've shown before, so in science and engineering. The analogy of, or let's say the concept that we pursued is based on a mechatronic platform, because we have been always very interested, not only, but most interested in the mechanical platform or the mechatronic platform. So for many thousand years, the growth of let's say technology in a broad sense was based on the integration of mechanisms, actuators, energy supply, and some sort of human-machine interface. And this was a history for, as I said, most of the history of human species. But then in the 50s, in fact, a radical change occurred. This is the introduction of the transistor, if you will, so some sort of intelligence that then was incorporated into the mechatronic platform. So you see, in addition to what the pre-mechatronic, let's say, era, sensors and embedded control, essentially microelectronics, were introduced, so that today all devices, including, or systems, including robots, are made like this, and they are also connected to the web. This is an engineering vision of what happened in the last 50 or 70 years, in fact. And then also there have been talks given by colleagues about macro and nano machines. So micro and nano machines are also the miniaturization and the integration of functions of this concept of mechatronic platform. I was So I would say I dared to organize a very successful workshop in 1986 about sensors and sensory systems. And a lot of people around the world participated in this. I was very young, participated in this discussion. And some years later, but not so many, I also co-organized another workshop on, this time, robots and biological systems, asking the question towards a new bionics. And key knowledge and components of these biological systems were sensors. Like, for example, this one, it is a retina-like CCD camera that we developed together with Professor Giulio Sandini, and was clearly bio-inspired, and it opened the connection between artificial sensors and artificial robots and biological systems. Again, at that time, many people were interested. If you look at this set of pictures, you will find the key people in robotics later. So by putting this together, we created this new domain of robotic science and engineering that essentially is aims at analyzing biological systems from an engineering point of view, and then developing biomimetic robots, bio-inspired robots, artificial organs, sensors and limbs, and medical robots for human assistance. The creation of this idea of science-based engineering, I was and I am more and more convinced that the right way to go is like this. In 1949, the discovery of the sandwich transistor that was recognized as a Nobel Prize in physics to people like Shockley. And then the development of technology like the transistors in computer design, the microcontroller, microcomputer, and eventually the robot that started in 1972 as the integration of mechanical engineering. This was developed at Waseda University, and microelectronics. So from science to engineering. And actually, this idea has been now fully recognized by the emergence of journals like Science Robotics, that is by far the one with the largest impact factor in robotics, Science Robotics, and I've been a founding editor of this journal. And then also the transactions of medical robotics and bionics, of which I'm editor-in-chief. So science and engineering is smoothly connected. I'm going to share with you a couple of examples of what this means and how this is related to sensing science and technology. For example, the adventure of capsule endoscopy, starting from real science fiction, if you will, going to biomimetic analysis, and then to highly integrated class of devices that are just like this representation given by three very visionary surgeons. That is the concept of a miniaturized tool incorporating a number of functions, including many sensors and many actuators, many robots, if you will, to address to perform operation inside the human body. And in early 90s, we were inspired by observation of animal creatures like worm to develop. And by the way, I'm very pleased to see here, people who were my colleagues that actually my students or PhD students at that time, who are now all full professors, but not only that, they are deans, they are rectors, they are ministers, and so on. Starting from this crazy idea at that time, it is developing a painless colonoscopy system based on inchworm-like locomotion. And today, this is a product, in fact, a startup company that we have created, the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna, is producing an inchworm-based colonoscopy system that has been used already in more than 3,000 patients. There is more, if you see, with a lot of sensing capability. For example, very, very high resolution camera here inside this capsule and robotics use. But this is just the beginning of an entire new way of thinking about endoscopic capsules. So, for example, a capsule that include sensor to monitor at large gastrointestinal health, many factors. And you see how a pill is full of sensors and processors, very high quality, very highly integrated, or how many different new sensors could be included in this hardware, if you will, to explore the microbiome, or even new configuration could be explored, like, for example, an origami robot that is configurations in which micro robot could be assembled, or electronic nose for colorectal cancer diagnosis. And this is, let's say, concerning this area of entering the human body and with sensors, with actuators, and exploring and transmitting. So there is another very interesting example that is the case of a hand. I was inspired by a movie like Star Wars to develop sensors of different kinds, hands, prosthetic hands and robotics hands. And here again, there are many people, including some that you have seen. Calogero is here, by the way, and Silvestro is here, and Alberto is here. So very interesting, once again, a vision and a dream. And the importance of sensors in this was also absolutely remarkable. Together with Danilo De Rossi in 1984, we published what is the first solution to a skin-like layered sensor that then was developed by many other people, including Beckai, who is now a PI at the Italian Institute of Technology, Massimo Bergamasco, who is a professor and director of the new Institute of Mechanical Science. But you see here, after the sensor, we were very sophisticated, by the way. We were able to mount the sensor on a fingertip and to connect the hand with the fingertip to the brain. You have already seen the development of this concept, but essentially, so from the sensor to the finger, to the hand, to the arm, to the connection with the peripheral nervous system. And with colleagues like Calogero, who are now leading this field of touch science and touch engineering for bionic limb prosthesis, but not only. And we are here, you know, we are at the level this was achieved at PFL, and Silvestro was also part of it. Essentially, we are close to make people with paralysis, paraplegic or even tetraplegic in some case in the near future, in any case with spinal cord injuries, to regain the control of their leg muscle. You know, this was really science fiction, but we are now at the frontier and ready to go. I conclude by adding to what Professor Comandè said, with something that we faced earlier, because this is what really we were involved in. when dealing with connecting an artificial system with the neural system, essentially we are developing cyborgs. This is the definition of cyborgs, if you will. And in paper written 20 years ago, in this case on Nature, colleagues were working with chips or electrodes with a controller directly inserted into the nervous system or brain of animals like this, like a mouse, in fact, or like a pigeon or like insects, who were controlled by the experimenter by means of a joystick, a mouse, if you will, a mouse controlling a mouse, if you will, this. And actually, while coordinating a major European project like New Robotics that really originated an immense amount of new knowledge, new technology, I had personally to face with objection by the European Union about ethical, legal and social issues. So I was asked to report to the Ethics and Science Committee of the EU. I had an ethical review. And the ethical issues that were raised were about respect for human dignity, respect for dignity of other animals and in particular primates, potential misuse of the technology like warfare, and essentially we have got the recommendation by the ethical panel. So we answered in a convincing manner so that in fact we were able to start worldwide the development of the area of roboethics based not just on curiosity but on real problems, real cases. So what were we doing in developing these bionic prostheses connected to the brain? We dealt with augmentation, but actually we were also connecting, like in cyborgs, an external system to the intimate area of humans, actually also animals. So this is certainly a very short, but I think quite interesting description of what we have done. What's next? What's next? I take the inspiration from Richard Feynman, who in his famous speech in 1965 said, there is plenty of room at the bottom, for sure. There is plenty of room in sensing, science, technology. So while thanking you, I really wish all much success to this initiative of ELISA, of course, and Sensing, Science, Technology. Thank you.
Thank you a lot to Paolo Dario. It was a truly inspirational talk, and we'll launch the roundtable in a perfect manner because also it introduces topics of ethical aspects. So legal data protection that were mentioned by Giovanni Comandè, and also ethical implications of new technologies. I would immediately start for the roundtable, if you agree. The roundtable will be co-chaired by Daniela Gregorich, Lorenzo Bartalesi, and myself. And we will have a good number of panelists that are confirmed by our institutions, and I immediately give the field to Daniela for moderating the start of the session.
Good. So I will just present in this couple of slides maybe a resume and going towards our general objective and the goal of what we are aiming to achieve with this workshop today. And I want to thank to Calogero and organizers to invite me to also be present on this workshop, and I hope to future collaborations, because there is really interesting society, and the society showed us in the numerous talks that we really live in a world of sensors. So sensors are all around us in the safety field, in the food field, in the health field, and just simply all around. And the field of sensing and sensor technology is increasing because we learn how to advance the materials and materials properties. We learn how to miniaturize these devices, and also due to digitation, the sensors are now at the front of innovation. And this is really nice overview of global biosensor market. If we look at the societal needs of the health and biosensors, bioapplications, and bioinspiration, we can see that the global market of biosensor is just expected to rise, and also that besides North America, Europe is having some of key players in the global biosensor market. So this is really interesting for us, and we can also see that the main drivers in the biosensors are actually the health and safety of the population. So from this, what is my opinion is that the futuristic intelligent systems will incorporate this sensor technology to recognize visual, tactile, olfactory, audio, and physical senses, and not just futuristic systems, because these systems we saw already existing in the numerous presentations today. So I think that the task in front of us is just their further advancement and training of the new engineers and scientists in the field. So, and if we look at basically any definition on the internet what sensing technology is, you could find that definition is that this is a technology that uses sensors to acquire information by detecting physical, chemical, or biological property quantities and convert them into readable signal. Now, this looks a little bit complicated, but I went to dissect this, and we can see that underlying this definition, we have a multidisciplinary and also multi-institutional field, because we have natural sciences that include also the medicine that are driving basic fundamental research. We have the engineering that is bridging these natural sciences with intelligent production that is being delivered to the communities, and also that this field of sensing technology is actually overlapping between academia and industry, and this might be the real path that we need to follow. So this integration of academia and industry, and if our objective, one of main objectives of today's workshop is to train leading scientists and professionals at the forefront of sensing sciences and technologies, we should probably look at one of the main goals to bridge this research and innovation needs by involving both academia and industry with these novel educational programs. And when we are looking at the education of these new scientists and professionals, we can see that there is really large set of skills and competencies that are underlying the sensing technology. So we saw the mentioning of nanotechnology, physics, chemistry, biochemistry, neuroscience, robotics, AI, also packaging of the devices, ethics, which is being raised in almost any of the projects, and also translational research. And now in the last slide, this is just kind of my simple summary of what educational initiatives we can take over to integrate these sensory technologies into the today's education. So at university levels, as it's also already been shown, that some universities have modules that are being in the field of sensing sciences and technologies at the undergraduate level. level. I'm besides developing the new module for acquisition and sensing with the nanomaterials. I'm also trying to involve myself to contribute to the lectures of the professors that are driving the basic sciences, for example, nanomaterials. And in last 2 lectures, I give students a brief overview of the applications in the biosensors, which then drives students to research more on the topics. Then on European level, but maybe also beyond, we have mainly calls that are coming from Horizon and from MSCA. So the first one that is really interesting, maybe to all of us in this community, is MSCA Doctoral Networks, which is previously known as ITN. That is international and interdisciplinary academic, but also joint academic and industrial program for new doctorates, where the students can learn how to work in academia and in the industry. There is also similarly staff exchange for Europe and beyond in academia and non-academic sector, and also very interesting European calls from EIC Pathfinder, which are calling for high-risk, high-gain science towards technology breakthroughs and in the interdisciplinary research. And I feel that sensor technology is exactly that now, high-risk and high-gain science. And also on the global level, we can form the collaborative grants with our collaborators in US or in other countries. One of examples in Germany is collaboration between NSF and DFG, and the other countries in Europe have similar initiatives, not just with US, and also with other countries. And I think it's also important to increase visibility to young researchers, first with normally publishing the patents and articles, but also by further organizing workshops such as these, presenting seminars, presenting the field at the conferences, and least but not less important is outreach to the publics, where we can show what we are doing and why is it important what we are doing. And with this, I want to end my short overview and give voice to the further panelists that I hope that will continue with contributing to maybe new ideas in this round table discussion.
We cannot hear you, Calogero.
Okay. Calogero, you are
Grazie.
You're mute. Yeah.
Thank you, Daniela, for this grand setting, and that is very relevant and will help us introducing the roundtable of the afternoon. Let me remind, as I told this morning, that I started a discussion with Nature Spring group to organize a Nature conference on this topic. This will be a plan that will develop by late 2022 or start of 2023. But this community we are putting together for sure will be the seed for launching this initiative that could be a major conference that would have a target of several hundred of participants. I would like to give the field with a friend and a colleague with which we shared several initiatives for the sensors community. That is Professor Emiliano Schena, that is a professor of measurements at the Campus Biomedical University in Rome, and today is a guest participant external to the EELISA network, but in his role as a chair of the Italian chapter of the IEEE Sensor Council. So we expect a Emiliano to give us some overviews, not only on the IEEE Sensor Council, but also on challenge-based learning, as Emiliano had a very important role in launching some challenges within several conferences that stimulated the participation of students and their engagement and education. So Emiliano, the field is yours, and after Emiliano we will start the roundtable. We have a list of speakers. We will start with Professor Michele Endin, and after him Professor Luca Valcarenghi. Of course, feel free to interact and raise the hand to speak during the roundtable. This is a roundtable, not just a frontal conference. Emiliano, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Calogero. Just a double check. Can you see properly my screen and can you hear me properly? Great. Sure. Hello, everyone. It's my very great privilege to be here at this Disciplinary Broadening Workshop on Sensing Sciences and Technologies. Of course, first of all, I really want to thank my colleague and friend Calogero and all the organizers for inviting me and involving the chapter that I'm chairing in this interesting workshop focused on a topic very close to the main focus of our chapter. Well, so let me get right into my talk. The outline is shown here. Firstly, I'll talk about the IEEE Sensors Council, and I'll give you a short description of what the Italy chapter is. Then I'll give you an overview on the officers and on the taxonomy of the chapter, which was defined by the officer when we founded it. After this introductive description, I'll focus on some selected activities organized by the Italy chapter related to sensing sciences and technologies, and mainly on technology used to develop sensors. And finally, I'll close the talk with showing you the experience of our chapter in the organization of some challenges and on how these challenges can be added to more traditional educational program at the university. Well, probably the large part of you knows, but basically the IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, is an organization with the core purpose to foster technological innovation and excellence for the benefit of the humanity. It produces over 30% of the world literature on the electrical and electronics engineer and computer science fields, organizes conferences, tutorials, and publishes standards. And in addition, the IEEE organizes educational programs to provide educational opportunity to its members. The IEEE is organized in societies. There are, I think, 39 active societies and councils, 7. And these societies and councils are focused on specific technical areas. In addition, the IEEE is divided in 10 geographic regions, and the chapter is a technical subunit of a region, and it is part of one or more sections or councils. So basically, the chapters can be a local link to resources available from IEEE and its society, and can provide to the members interesting and useful opportunities to network at the local level. Well, one of the 7 councils is the IEEE Sensors Council. It was founded in 1998, and this council is mainly focused on the theory, the development, and the application of sensors. So, of course, the topic, the main areas of this council are strongly related to this workshop. Well, the IEEE Sensors Council has 28 active chapters all around the world, and the Italy chapter is the 3rd founded in Region 8, which involves Africa and Europe. And it was founded around 4 years ago with the aim to aggregate basically the fragmented scenario of activities related to sensors in Italy, and the aim was to establish a dynamic network involving people interested in sensors field, to consolidate collaboration among researchers from academia and the industry, to form a rich environment to exchange new knowledge and ideas, and to develop a good environment for young professionals and, of course, students working in these fields. Well, I really want to thank the co-founders of the chapter, and so I need to thank again Professor Oddo. He promoted the idea to found the chapter and is one of the most active members, and the officers of the chapters, Paola Saccomandi, Danilo Pani, and Lorenzo Capinelli. They provide a continuous and valuable support to all the activities of the chapter, and it's great to work with them every day. Well, after the foundation, the first step was to organize the chapter in a taxonomy based on basically on 3 pillars. The first one is based on the sensors application. The second one on the measurand, so on the parameter that is measured by the sensor. And the third one is the technology used to fabricate the sensors. And so after this step, we try to involve other colleagues by establishing technical committees based on specific topics which are included in these 3 pillars. Now we have 22 active committees chaired by colleagues very expert in these specific areas. You can see in the slide the 22 technical committees that ranges from wearable sensors, soft sensors, textile sensors, tactile sensors, sports sensors, and so on. So basically cover both the technology, for instance, fiber optic based sensors, the application, for instance, physiological sensors, and also the measurand, for instance, flow sensors. Well, along these 4 years, our chapter has experienced a significant increment of members, and we have also organized several activities. We have organized awards to engage students and young researchers in this topic. We have organized 55 lectures, hackathons for students, and 9 summer schools. Thanks to all these activities, the IEEE has conferred 2 prestigious awards to the chapter in the last 2 years. Well, as said, we have organized several educational activities for the students. Among them, we have organized or we have supported the organization of 9 summer schools. For instance, last summer we have organized a summer school in Rome with more than 85 participants focused on wearable sensors in sport, and we are planning the next edition on the same topic for the next June. And basically, 1 year after the foundation of the chapter, we tried to organize also challenges to involve and engage students. So starting from 2019, we have organized 1 challenge for years focused on the development of wearable systems for physiological monitoring. The last competition involved 10 teams for a total of 52 students from 6 different universities. And the challenge was supported by 2 industrial partners. One of them was ST Microelectronics and Nicktronics. Well, I would like to close the talk with what is my thought about this challenge-based learning. I think this approach is an efficient and effective method. An effective method for learning while solving real-world challenges in the field of sensors. So students during these challenges design the sensing elements, the front-end electronics, and the transmission stage for the data transmission, embedded these 3 main parts into a wearable system, and developed algorithms for extracting the features of interest from the raw data collected by the wearable. They worked side by side, and this approach promoted collaboration to identify ideas and solve common challenges, as well as ask questions. Basically, they were involved in their learning since they formulated questions, for instance, to understand why wearable can be used in a specific scenario to solve a real-life challenge, and how to fabricate a wearable to solve that challenge. For instance, more than 1 project was focused on using wearables to find innovative ways to provide care by using new generation of technologies to transform the traditional medical system or the traditional diagnostic path or the traditional rehabilitation process, making these approaches more efficient, more effective, or in some cases more personalized. So they try to make a difference in a specific arena, while at the same time they were engaged in learning because they feel responsible and take the action together to solve challenging questions. I also need to highlight that the industrial partners and my institution at the University Campus Biomedico of Rome supported all these activities by providing technical support, of course, but also free sample of sensors and electronics, and for buying consumables and sensors. So this activity was also the opportunity for our students and for the students of our other university to interact with industrial and other academic partners. So summing up, the experience of our chapter in the organization of the challenges is positive in terms of both student engagement and learning, and we are planning the next challenge for June. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emiliano. And, you also have shown experiences with summer schools, and I think they are valuable connections to explore for the future, so to have possibilities to maybe cooperate with the Metropolitan Council for the co-organization of summer schools. As you know, we are organizing a seasonal school program at the Scuola. I'm personally organizing none of the initiative, at least this year, but next year I plan to. But several of my colleagues are organizing seasonal schools, so I would suggest to interact with Professor Sant'Anna, since there could be room for possible synergies, as an example, to stimulate the participation in the seasonal schools that Sant'Anna is organizing, and that are also offered in the framework of the EELISA network. Let me give the floor now to Professor Michele Emdin. Let me remark that this is now a round table, so we have a draft order that is approximately the one that is listed on the website, but we expect everybody to interact as appropriate. So raise the hand if you wanted to speak and comment. Michele, it's up to you. Thank you for being with us, and any contribution you may want to bring to the floor is most welcome. Professor Emdin is the professor of cardiology and the head of the cardiothoracic department of Fondazione Toscana Gabriele Monasterio, which is our, say, connected clinical facility that is specialized on cardio and respiratory diseases, with real excellence in the field within the sanitary system. So Michele, thanks again for being with us.
Thank you. If I understand well, so I can give my presentation now, or...
Yeah, sure.
So I was asked from Calogero, by Calogero, to give a brief overview of a specific educational facility we have set up in the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna. The topic of sensors, and which is closer to our clinical research and clinical work at the Fondazione Monasterio, our research hospital, as cardiologists. So as cardiology, every day we use diagnostic tools which include sensors, from looking at the electrical and mechanical function of heart and vessels, of course. So, and we are truly dedicated in studying as you probably had discussed this morning, brain-heart interaction and the abnormalities of neural control of cardiovascular system, which are the basis for the clinical findings and disease evolution in heart patient. But actually, there is another topic which is truly important. One of looking at medical education in a novel perspective, and I will summarize our current experience in a few slides and into videos. So I would like to okay, so medical education in most of university, you can see my slide, I think, Calogero.
Yes, I confirm. Thank you very much.
It's a matter of front lessons and with a nice theoretical approach, but with final result which is summarized in the next two slides. So we study diseases as they exist in medical repertories, and the misconcept a young medical doctor learns is that there is no alternative than health or disease, and that if we study well a disease catalog, we only need to look for the right page when we face a patient, and also that therapy directly descends from a diagnosis. Faced to the patient, actually same symptoms underlie different diseases. Diseases phenotypes are truly different from the paradigm described in textbooks, and there is no clear border between health and disease. So this means that we have to look to novel approaches in medical education, which begin in changing the object of our teaching. These are some of the medical courses we have decided to start during a few next years at the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna. Medical reasoning, that is pathophysiology, technology, and ethics in medical reasoning, ethics of care, error in medicine, medical humanities, communicating with patient, and narrative medicine. So the future medical doctor will be a medical expert. So not only with the professional and scholar growth, but so he will be in our vision an health advocate and communicator, collaborator, and also a manager, in the sense that also organizative skills will be necessary in her profession. With this basis, so the basis of every kind of medical approach to the patient is the centrality of the person and the ability to hear the person, to explain the disease on a confidence basis. But before meeting the patient, we can use simulation, macro and micro simulation. And this means that we can have our medical students simulating the evaluation of patient problems in settings which push them to face likely difficult conditions, and with teachers able to drive them through the medical reasoning and decision-making path. And for this reason, we decided, together with Claudio Passino and with the support of the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna, his rector, Domenico Perata, to achieve some very sophisticated tools which make virtual teaching a real experience.
Michele, we cannot hear the sound because probably it's not shared, but if you can comment over the video, it will be...
You see two mannequins that enable students and teachers to learn in different situations. One is dedicated to teach and learn echocardiogram and the echography, transthoracic and transabdominal ultrasound diagnostic procedure. This one is a very specialized mannequin, which is dedicated to teach emergency acute cardiovascular disease management. There is afterwards a briefing session where the behavior of students, which is filmed before, may be entered, and every kind of possible mistake or difficult decision is then discussed and corrected by the teachers. This approach is dedicated to the medical students of the Scuola Sant'Anna, but it is also opened to medical students of the Universitesi, and we use not only commercial tools, very sophisticated see that as we already mentioned for the EELISA meeting, we have also asked to our students in a different setting. Here is present Barbara Henry, was a collaborator in this project. At the time of the 80th anniversary of the racist legislation in Italy, we asked to our students from the Scuola Normale Superiore to remind the experiences of students and teachers which have been expelled at that time from the Pisa University. This happened a beautiful day. Everyone can review on the YouTube channel of the Scuola, and also reading this book. But we decided also to perform an installation which was set in the church of the Scuola, and this experience, which you can see here in this video, was thought by ourselves and two artists, also Ferrari and Gianni Lucchesi. We built 4 rooms which were the metaphor of the historical events since 1938 up to 1945. So 4 rooms, black, gray, and red, and a white one, but which afterwards we decided to make virtual, thanks to Massimo Bergamasco. And his and her collaborators. So this use of virtual reality, so this is the rendering we could have wearing the Oculus, kind of, we are not speaking about the sensor, we are about perception, which is actually another important step. So after sensing, there is a perception. So so immersive and virtual reality can be part of now a medical educational process. So this is an example of a fully virtual experience reproducing the. I don't know if ecological suggestion.
Thank you very much, Michele. Thank you for your contribution, because you launched 2 topics that are very relevant. So one is related to medical practice, and the other is related to being professors, and then part of society and also with history that we have in our background, and sensors and senses are very relevant for what you showed so far. And by the way, the next talks will be, let me just frame. So we expect to finish at 5 p.m. and let me frame the agenda. So we expect to have a couple of talks by our colleagues engineers, 3 talks remaining that are Luca Valcarenghi, Gastone Ciuti, and Antonio Frisoli. Then there will be our colleagues from a startup company connected to Scuola Normale, Agostini, and also 2 colleagues from ITU from Turkey that are partners from the EELISA network. And we will conclude with the last half an hour. The final part of the roundtable will be on societal aspects of and the ethical implication of sensing spaces with Andrea Mina, Alberto Pirni, and Barbara Henry. So I will go in this order. If you agree, we plan to conclude at 5, let's say 5:15, and so it's up to Luca if you wanted to have a brief discussion now. Luca Valcarenghi is a professor of telecommunications and is expert in. It's very important, this topic, because if we generate data, as we have seen before, we have also to transmit data and store data. And so I give the floor to Luca. Thank you again.
Thank you, Calogero. Thank you to the attendants that are still there to listen to my presentation. I hope you can see my slides.
Yes, yes.
So the title of this presentation was put together with Professor Piero Castoldi, and it contains mainly only 2 slides, but that have a lot of information anyway. And the title is Networks for Sensing and Network Sensing. So let me start with the first slide. And as Calogero was saying, sometimes for economical reason, for energy purposes, and so on, instead of having elaboration of the data that are collected by the sensors, sometimes these data are sent to through a wireless connection and elaborated, for example, at the edge of the network. We have heard from ST Microelectronics that also edge computing is on the hype. So in this part of the presentation, we highlight how the 5G and the future 6G network equipped with edge computing can help, for example, robots that can be single, or there can be a fleet of robots, to elaborate data that they acquire and to let's say being able to be directed to a specific target. And so this is what I meant with network for sensing. But a little bit aside from what we heard during today, in the telecommunication networks is increasing the topic related to network sensing. And what is network sensing? Even in the telecommunication, due to the high complexity of the network and to the need of adapting the network to different applications that can raise almost instantaneously, a paradigm based on a closed loop control, so very similar to the control used in mechanical engineering, is emerging. So this is the concept that is sometimes called zero-touch network and service management. So in this case, we are not using the network for transmitting sense data, but we are actually sensing the network. So we are observing
what is happening in the network, driven by the concept that we cannot control what we cannot measure. So, for example, the activities that are ongoing on the TechIP Institute are related to apply these zero-touch network and service management, for example, to different type of networks. So you have here an example of optical networks, but we are using it also for wireless and 6G network. And the concept is based on collecting data from the network. Obviously, the sensors are not the sensor we heard about earlier, but they are sensors that, for example, counts the packets that are in a queue of a switch or the delay that a packet is experiencing. Then perform analytics, so orient the choice of the entity that needs to make a decision, the intelligence that makes a decision, and the act part that enforces this decision. So this is what we are working also on. So not only networks for sensing, for transmitting the data and elaborating the data that are collected by the sensor, but also network sensing, so sensing the telecommunication network to perform a closed loop control, also based on artificial intelligence and machine learning technology. And so thank you very much, Calogero, and so this is the end of my talk.
Thank you very much, Luca. And the last two technological talks from my institution are Gastone Ciuti, that is a professor of biomedical engineering, and colleagues of mine, a friend in our research institute. He uses sensors technologies for biomedical application mostly. So Gastone, the field is yours.
Thank you very much, Calogero. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I will take the chance to present in a few minutes, a few, let's say, things I got in mind within today to provide my contribution to this very interesting, let's say, discussion. So you know me, I'm working on medical robotics, and actually sensor is one of the main ingredient in order to make a robot. Actually, I don't want to say smart, but to make a robot suitable for medical application, but in any kind of interaction with humans. So we need to provide perception to robots, to machines, in order to make the actuation intelligent. Okay, so these are three keywords I want to provide to us, because we always and we often talk about a robot has the combination of several modules that I may summarize in actuation, perception, and intelligence. But in order to have an intelligent actuation, we really need to perceive, to sense the environment inside and around. So I started by sketching into this slide a messy amount of information and images about what are the technology and sensor for advancing human-robot interaction. We can work on defining new, let's say, sensorized actuator. We can make a retrofit of existing robots covering the system with new contact or proximity detection sensors. We can work on using external, let's say, system, mainly visual-based system, to reconstruct the environment and to evaluate the interaction between humans and robots. Or we can work for sure on different structures, different system, using, for example, soft robotics. But I think all of you already seen around the use of skins, the use of sensors that most of the time in the most promising way are, let's say, attached, glued, fixed on existing system, because an engineer also has to consider to retrofit, to adapt the existing technologies to the new world, to new environment, and to new needs. Okay, so creating this smart skin can make standard robots collaborative, or it can make collaborative robots more advanced in human-robot interaction. So this is what actually we did at the Biorobotic Institute, starting from the technology. You don't see the technology now because it's a layer, is thin as a paper, and this capacitive sensor is able to detect the proximity of a person at a few centimeters. You know, so we started, and I do suggest to start by the principle and technologies. And these technologies is also more and more enhanced by active elements that can be worn by the user. My colleague is wearing a bracelet, and the same response is now, let's say, possible at more than 50 centimeters when it was possible at 15 centimeters without the use of active elements. So what I want to say is that we can work on sensor for robots, but we can also work on sensor for humans, and we can work on the combination of sensing technologies for all the, let's say, movable objects and things and person in a complex environment. This sensor can be flexible and adapted to any structure. We decided to, let's say, melt in a soft skin, and so we have bracelets that can be attached to any kind of robots to make them again collaborative. So our goal is to let's say, create a technology, define an application, and design and develop system that can be adapted to new and smart robots. These technologies is not only possible to be used as a proximity detection system, but also can be used for detecting as well materials. So you see here general and say very say fast description of the sensor technology that is reported into this white box, and on the screen of this monitor you can see what is actually recognized based on the object that is close to the sensor, because sensor is important, but intelligence, bringing this information and combining this information can be used, let's say, for different application. Okay, so sometimes we fail because the empty bottle of water is not recognized. We recognize a bigger box of plastic, but is because actually we have to still make our sensors and in future the robot smarter and more intelligent. I'm moving on. How sensors are important in order to, let's say, perceive the environment. We can use vision-based external sensor that now are, I would say, the state of the art in order to reconstruct the environment, and how to use this information for sure to navigate mobile robots into and within unstructured environments. As I told, and then I will go to close this intervention, all the information from sensor has to be used and exploited in the right manner thanks to artificial intelligence, or I would say deep learning techniques. What you see here is an algorithm that we developed for polyps detection. What you see here is a colonic tract, a human colonic tract, and with our algorithm that is, let's say, trained with a huge amount of data, another important big aspect to consider. So how to retrieve big data and how to retrieve big data in a standard and high quality manner. But this data can be used for, let's say, enhancing medicine and let's say clinical application. I will conclude showing you a simulated environment. This is a simulators that we designed, so it's a virtual simulator. And why sensor? Because it's also important to use sensor in order to train the user, but also to understand how a user is, let's say, is compliant, with the environment that could be physical or virtual environment. And we are designing and making a study on evaluating the cognitive load and the acceptance of new interfaces. So means a new way of controlling robots for a new generation, let's say, of technologies for, let's say, new paradigms of medicine. I conclude here. I would like to say a lot of things, but I need to leave the words to my colleagues, and thank you very much for this occasion.
Thank you, Gastone, and I would now give the field to Antonio.
Here I am. Thank you for the invitation.
Professor of robotics, so applied mechanics, the academic sector, and is a leader at the Institute of Mechanical Intelligence, particularly active in the PERFROL Super Lab.
I not prepare really a presentation, but I will show some material, some video just to comment about the relevance of sensors in our area of application. We mainly deal with wearable robotics, telerobotics, and collaborative robotics, so basically human-robot interaction. This is related to what Gastone before was presenting, and also mobile inspection robotics. Of course, for interaction between human and robot, sensors play a relevant, real key role, because they basically are the main aspect for building bot interaction and intelligent capabilities at the robot side. So just to give an idea, possible application on which we work, these are some images of a system of telepresence, where basically here the idea is that you can transfer remotely to an operator all the capability to perform everyday life tasks. And of course, this is a collaboration with the institute, with the area of artificial hands, so Professor Cipriani and Marco Controzzi in Biorobotic Institute. So basically, the idea is that if you want to have, from the sensory point of view, a feedback that is not only visual feedback, but only related to the sense of touch, you need to have on the robot side the capability of getting this information. So you can see what the operator is doing on the other side. So he's basically floating his hands in the air, and at the same time getting, let's say, artificial feedback, sensory feedback of what is happening on the other side. And this is one of the areas that are relevant, but basically this has an impact also in rehabilitation, where basically the same approach can be used to provide conditions for robotic assisted rehabilitation. And just to have a very short overview, you can use also this technology to implement, for instance, telemedicine. So here you can see how you can use the same kind of technology to explore, in this case, this dimension. And to consider another, so these are some images from rehabilitation. And just to give another idea of possible applications of robotic telepresence technology, during COVID-19, we developed platforms for UVC disinfection. Also in this case, it could be important for the possibility of controlling remotely this kind of robot that are capable of performing disinfection of environments. And on the other side, another relevant field of application is the one of basically industrial inspection. So here you see some example of robot that can be used in the context of railway. So the operator in this case can remotely inspect parts of the train. In this case, we consider predictive maintenance for increasing safety in railway transportation. So these are just the sharing of some contents, and I leave the floor to the next speakers.
Thank you, Antonio. And Lorenzo, will you drive up the conclusion?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Calogero. And we are in the last stages of this rich and challenging workshop. So before moving on the social sciences and humanities of sensing part, we conclude the sensor application section on this round table with the last two speakers. So I can present you, the first one is Matteo Agostini. Matteo Agostini, a PhD in molecular biophysics and nanotechnology engineering. Engineer is the CEO and co-founder of Intasystem, a spin-off of the laboratory NEST of Scuola Normale Superiore di Pisa and Italian National Research Council. So I give him the floor.
Hello.
Is that okay? You're there, okay? It's yours.
Thanks for the introduction. I will share a very brief presentation just to have a guideline. Let me see here. Okay. Okay. So you should not see my screen. First of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here, and I hope that I can give a valuable contribution to this workshop, which in my opinion is fundamental for the development of new careers, new educational paths for the people that will be our next society. Indeed, in our case, we are, as a company, we are focused on the on specific application, even if we start as a research group. But yeah, so I will be really focused on our product, on the product that we are developing, and the kind of professional kind of background that we are seeking in the universities and other educational paths for building, for growing our market. So first of all, a very brief introduction on our company. Intasystems is the first spin-off of Laboratory Nest, which is a multidisciplinary research laboratory in Pisa, held by Scuola Normale Superiore and Nanoscience Institute of CNR. So our company actually started as my PhD project in Scuola Normale Superiore, and then became commercial idea, as in many cases happens. So in our case, we are actually working inside the laboratory, the NEST laboratory, to develop our products. The main application, the main product that we are working on is this one, which we call Breaker. It's a lab-on-chip, a biosensor that can detect many types of biological animals, ranging from antibodies, proteins, viruses, bacteria, and other kind of bioanalytes. This is the result of background research, of a basic research, sorry, in physics, in chemistry, and in biology, which embraces also the various activities that are performed inside the NEST laboratory, which has the nanotechnology as an overall head. But in fact, it is the everyday work is done in these areas. So physics, let's say, biology, and chemistry. Indeed, in our case, we are developing the product. So we started from the chip, and we are building the whole biosensing system. The main goal of this system is very precise, is to make or at least help the diagnosis of traumatic brain injuries from blood analysis. So we hope that one day we will deploy this device in the hospitals or in the emergency departments for reducing the unnecessary computerized Excel tomographies. Currently, we are in the middle of a proof of concept project that was funded by two investment funds. And one of the main aims of our company is to grow our team. And we will soon face the challenge to find people with the right background that obviously will be trained when he or she will enter our company. But we know today that we will seek for people that have a strong background in physics, for example, micro and nanomechanical systems, or radio frequency and electromagnetic waves, so high frequency electromagnetic waves. This is the very basic, the very fundamental principle of our technology. We will also have the need for engineers or other kind of curricula with a background in electronics, obviously, or in surface chemistry, in biotechnology. As you can see, these areas are the ones that are actually are very strongly related to our laboratory and to our product. But also, these kind of people we will have should have at least general knowledge of fabrication, for example, of macro and nano devices, or be familiar with the concept of advanced materials, materials that are not, let's say, standard, as well as one of the most important things to face is to find people that has also knowledge in data science and informatics, since our technology is also running in artificial intelligence algorithms for the classification of the patients. These two types of education that we will look for soon is then, let's say, completed with other kind of people, other kind of professional that will be for sure a very important resource for our company. There are people that have knowledge of, for example, how to make a market research. So I'm not really an expert in this kind of field. I'm actually, as was mentioned before, an engineer. So maybe I will be not very precise in what I'm looking for, but people who can be familiar with market research will be for sure important, as well as people that can develop business plans and also know how our company runs, or at least have a sense of what a startup in these days are really one of the most popular things to do after the education. How a startup is run. So the role of I don't know, for example, investments, either private or public, and so on. Last but not least, I think I wrote it as a separate skill, the project management, but I believe that should be spread all over the other kinds of professional, because the ability, the capability to manage very complex project like running a startup for sure is a very complex one, but also in my experience, for example, as a PhD student, when I was a PhD student, one of the main challenges was how do I organize my time? How do I organize my deadlines for the a successful program, to finish a successful program? And this thing, I think, is really missing in the educational part at the moment. Some kind of techniques, or at least basic knowledge of how a project can be managed, can be controlled, planned, controlled, and tried after its launch. So that's it. I mean, this is my consideration on the environment of the sensing needs from the educational point of view. So I thank you again for the invitation, and if there are any questions and any curiosity, I'm open to discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Matteo Agostini for this talk, and thank you very much for your educational considerations. They are very important in this context. So thank you also for this. And now we have the last talk about the sensor application section of this roundtable. I hope you will forgive my pronunciation, Beset Ugur Torehin.
Yeah, that's totally
okay.
right. Yeah, you're
okay. Right. Perfect. Thank you very much. I was certified. But
you're most welcome.
Torehin is Associate Professor of Informatics at Istanbul Technical University. His research interests broadly lie in signal processing and pattern recognition with application to image, video analysis and communication systems. So I give you the floor.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo, for this invitation, and it's my really pleasure to share with you my group's efforts on sensor applications. I hope you can see my slides right now. Thank you for the intro. So this is Behçet from Istanbul Technical University. I'm a professor at the Institute of Informatics here, and I'm the PI of my research group, Signal Processing for Computational Intelligence research group. And I'm really delighted to share with you guys our group's applications on sensors. So let me start by giving one slide, a brief info about our institute. So our institute is one of the 6 dedicated institutes in different disciplines. So Informatics Institute offers 15 grad levels programs in various fields of informatics, including computer science, information and communications engineering, cybersecurity, cryptology, remote sensing, computational science and engineering. So we have 21 faculty members, and they serve for more than 400 students, all grad level in here. So coming back to my group, it is signal processing oriented, and our goal is to design signal processing tools and techniques for computational intelligence applications. It is founded in February 2018, and right now we have more than 20 members, including PhD holders and grad students at different levels. And as I said, our focus is on developing these tools for different applications, covering a range of applications such as multimodal surveillance, bioimage analysis, environmental monitoring, remote sensing, and applications related to UAVs and superconductor sensing modalities. And let me just go over them and give you a quick tour about what we have in here. So for multimodal surveillance systems, we are basically utilizing not only cameras, but also microphones, and not only cameras dedicated to visible range of the electromagnetic spectrum, but also for short, mid, and long wave infrared spectrums of the electromagnetic spectrum. And we are also utilizing pyroelectric sensors, PIR sensors, and vibration sensors in order to detect anomalous events such as falling person, fight, and fire, basically. I have been involved in fire detection for the last more than 15 years or so. So we developed systems dedicated to wildfire early detections, and they are deployed by the General Directorate of Forestry all around Turkey, and it has been in use. They are capable of detecting flames, smoke, and wildfire smoke, etc. And we have been extensively publishing in that research field. And recently, we grow interest in monitoring the efficacy of fishways as well. So these fishways are built as bypass routes for dams and for fish, basically, to migrate to their breeding sites. And we deploy and develop techniques, tools to analyze these fish behaviors utilizing image analysis techniques. As, for example, we basically develop a method to estimate the fishtail beat frequency in order to estimate the energy expenditure of fishes in these fishways. We also are involved in developing methods for hyperspectral data. And to that extent, we have been working on detection of, developing anomaly detection methods for hyperspectral data. And we also deploy several methods and develop some techniques for effective compression of these huge amount of data covering different spectral frequencies. We are also working on bioimage analysis, mostly analysis of microscopy images. To that end, we have been working on digital pathology applications and trying to estimate the classes and levels for cancer types. And we also develop techniques for quantification of myelination in axons, these myelin sheets. And we have been also working on karyotyping. Recently, our efforts for video understanding in compressed domain has received some funds. And in this slide, you can see we are able to detect license plates using much less amount of data rather than utilizing the whole video sequence. We are basically developing techniques to analyze the video stream with utilizing a much less number of pixels. So briefly, this was all about my group's work on different sensor applications. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can check our website, group's website as well. So thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Professor Torin, for your talk. And now we are about to conclude our journey from sensor to sensibility, and now we pass to the last part of the roundtable dedicated to the social science and humanities. During the workshop today, have emerged several times topics that activate multidisciplinary thinking also in the field of social science and humanities. It was evident the importance of this kind of research in a field like sensing sciences. Humanities and social science have to react to the social, political, ethical, legal, economic effects of this broad multidisciplinary field. But it's not just what I to say. It's not just matter of effect. the consequence. Humanities and social science, I think, can and should contribute to rethinking the training of the engineering of the culture, but also implement scientific and technological disciplinary skills in their curricula. So this is the last but not least of our journey. So I am very happy to give the floor to Barbara Henry. She's full professor of political philosophy at the Institute of Law, Politics and Development of the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna, and she's coordinator of the PhD in Human Rights and Global Politics. Human rights is another topic involved in I think in a very important manner in this field of the workshop of today. So I give the floor to Barbara Henry. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you very much to Calogero and to all the group of the organizing committee, to the colleagues of the Scuola Sant'Anna and of the other colleagues of the other university. So what I intended as my task is more than a presentation of my research field or my research area at the moment, which will be touched only very, very briefly. I intended my task in the sense of giving a kind of review of the state of the art, of the humanities of senses. I have not prepared any slides. I have prepared a kind of draft or a kind of review draft that I've already sent to Calogero. So all the names or the reference that you will hear, you can detect in the text that is already part of the folder for the EELISA enterprise, so to say that. So my title is How the Sensory Turn in Humanities is Allied with Novel Transdisciplinary Research and Educational Pathways. To start with, I will start a little bit provocative, saying that nothing is less neutral and most troubled than the discourse about senses, and progressively about concepts like perceptual organization, sensory experience, sensory order, sensorium especially. Sensorium can be understood as the seat of sensation of an organism sensing its own environment. It's not my definition. You can detect it in the discourse about senses in the humanities. And if somebody are asking nowadays, are the senses sparking interest in the humanities? We can answer again and again. It's a never-ending story, a never-ending story of the changing of research interest and of criteria of relevance. Not to forget, without undermining the purview of neurology and all the connected classes of science that have been in an extraordinary way been explored so far by the group of the scientists and the engineers, we could say that the senses, the sensorium circulates again after 1952, after the great work delivered by an economist, philosopher, and social scientist like Hayek, who wrote in 1952 The Sensory Order, an inquiry into the foundations of theoretical psychology. We can say that nowadays, again, they become an object, a critical object in history, in media and communication sciences, in philosophy, in performance studies, arts, and other fields. Of course, for those who are in literary studies, of course, it is a very old story because aesthetic, the discipline aesthetic, has an etymological origin in Greek, and the origin means aesthesis, means exactly perception, and aesthetic is related to sense and perception. And then why the senses present problems nowadays? Because perhaps at least scholars in the humanities are aware of the problems, of some shadows, and able to contribute to the most critical oriented hard sciences. In which sense? Considering, for example, the history, even of natural history and biology. Not to forget that in the 19th century, a very famous naturalist and biologist called Lawrence Ockham created a hierarchy a hierarchy of senses in relations to the varieties of man, from least to most developed, according with the development of the sensorial organs. And this idea that racist theories have been very strictly connected together with sexist theories with the hierarchy of senses is something that the humanities can recall again and again in order to make clear that science have been mostly, in many cases, abused to support stereotypes and prejudices. We had nothing to do with science itself. The example made by Hamden in the previous presentation is one among the others. And the hierarchy of science was related to a racial vision of the mankind in this sense. The skin man is the black, according of course to Lawrence Oken. The tongue man is the brown, Australian Malayan. The nose man is the red, American, Native American. The ear man is the yellow, Asiatic Mongolian. And the eye man is the white, European. And even if, of course, fortunately, since the end of the 20th century, the scholarly in the humanities, not only in the humanities, have opposed this type of connections, have broken the relation between the human type, the hierarchy of the human type, and the sensory capacity. Nevertheless, something of the still operating social hierarchy among the senses is still at work. For example, at least considering at least the humanities, for example, visual studies are the first, then sound studies, because sight and sound, seeing and hearing are considered the noblest among the senses, in the very traditional vision, which make a hierarchy and separated each of them from one side, and they are separated from the allegedly primitive senses, taste, touch, and smell, and so on and so on. And then, even if you want to eliminate the old colonial logic of the five senses, we should revisit even the classical notion of distinct sensations. And this is why the idea of the sensorium. Sensorium means the complexity of the ability to perceive the world and to react to the world and in the world is a very interesting concept, which I can say I can find a lot of interesting ideas and hints in the presentation of my colleagues in science. For example, the idea of the multisensory perception and the synesthetic vision of sensing. But for example, this idea and a new allegiance between even feminist post-colonial studies with the sensory turn in social science and in the sensing science, according to this idea of a synesthetic, anti-hierarchical vision of sensing, and of a new idea of the interrelation between the organism who is sensing and the environment, which is not only the object of the intervention, but even the real and the counterpart of intervention is something very, very important and relevant. And according to this idea, because together with race, gender has been considered according to the axis of the hierarchy of senses. And I don't need to go much more on this topic, but you must know that the highest senses are that of seeing and hearing of the man, able to travel, to work on to work outside, to be able to act in the outside world, and the most primitive senses were related to the women, and so on and so, exactly like the parallelism in the hierarchy among human types. And to go a little bit much more in the direction of which kind of disciplines, which kind of disciplinary, cross-disciplinary approach are to be adopted. And I use cross-disciplinary in the sense of the transdisciplinarities, that's to say between, but even across and even beyond disciplines, to say that we need some meta-disciplinary assets For example, hybrid anthropology, not human-centered ethics, inclusive, gender-sensitive and pluralist political theory, corporeality and embodied approaches, co-creative epistemology, and to combine a new multi-layered disciplinary approach to combine interpretative analysis with global art, imaginary, mass culture, and socio-technical system with a critical work on political philosophy. This is what the approach, what the contribution from the so-called sensory turn in the humanities can bring, and not to forget what has already been made in the world of the anthropology, of arts, creative economy, and so on. Starting from anthropology, we can quote, for example, the work of Katrin Gertz, Paul Stoller, Nadia Seremetakis, who worked on the idea of Marshall McLuhan, and Walter Onks on the idea that the cultural organization of the sensorium is something that cannot be avoided even in the so-called hard science. The idea that cultural mode of experience and cultural artifacts are sensory modes of historical memory. Not to forget, for example, the Center for Sensory Studies at Concordia University, which has been grounded in 1988 by David Howes, Anthony Synod, and Constance Klassen, who have made very, very important the idea, the formalization of the sensory turn, again in the ecological dimension. We are now facing the so-called sensory ecology. Again, all the names can be traced back in the paper that is in the folder, so if you are interested, you can find all this reference there. For example, Jay Gibson is a psychologist who wrote The Ecological Approach to Visual Perception, which is very interesting because the idea that perceptual clues in the environment indicate possibilities for action. Not to forget the idea that the empowerment of the actors can be only made real and visible and efficiency in a new vision of the relation with the environment. And again, Paul Rodaway's idea of a sensuous geography, considering sensory experience a dynamic interplay between self and world. And again, David Abrams' eco-phenomenology, who delineated the coeval biological and imaginary process through which humans and non-humans emerge and co-create reality. And all of these hints, are, in my opinion, very interesting. If you want to reconsider, even on behalf of a research path, but even on behalf of a new pivotal educational pathways, we should consider that to work about sensing, not simply as objects, and even in idea of eliminating this hierarchy between sensing and working on senses in a synesthetic way, but even considering sense methodologies as toolkits of navigating, investigating the cultural materials, the affective forces, and the epistemological paradigms through which humans and non-humans continuously both emerge, merge, and engage each other. In this sense, the sensory turn meets the post-human turn. And I'm very grateful to Arianna, who make a little bit reference this morning to this idea of the post-human area of studies as a new vision of connecting sensing, epistemology in the sense of co-creative epistemology, and even Anthropocene studies. Thank you very much for your attention.